Howdy folks, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. If you happen to be new, don't forget to subscribe while you're here. Today's video, so this is going to be a fun one. I made a mistake. Even the best of us get bamboozled every once in a while. And it's not like I really got bamboozled, but let's do a little story time about this XR100. So a couple weeks ago, phone rings, a customer of mine. He bought his son a new motorcycle a couple of years ago, and this was his son's old motorcycle, and they let it just sit. So he's like, hey, can you go through it? I want to sell it to a coworker or something like that. I was like, yeah, no problem. He brings it over. Now, mind you, this was like right before the holiday, and I'm trying to get all the work done for the year and all that stuff, so I didn't have a ton of time. And it was in the back of his truck. Long story short, he's like, yeah, I want you to do your thing to it. And then my buddy said he would buy it for not very much money. And I was like, after I get done with it, basically, you're just going to get your money back or not that much. So he's like, well, I'll sell it to you for $450. It's titled, all that good stuff. It was in the back of his truck. And it's a pretty clean XR100. It's all original plastic. The seat is a little bit like hard from sitting, but it doesn't, for an original bike, I think it's an 03, it's actually in pretty good condition. I didn't bother to get up in the truck and fully look it over, and guess what? My bad. That was totally my fault. I've been doing this for years. I've bought hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of motorcycles. And I got laxed, Good thing is it's an XR100. So yeah, why it was a big surprise. I didn't have time to look at it that day. I threw it in one of my sheds. A few days later, I pulled it out to start working on it, give it a carb clean. The engine is locked up. And I've had good luck in the past with pulling the plug and putting that Murphy's Magic Oil or whatever it's called and getting them loosened up. But it is just an XR100. It's not insanely complicated. So I figured I'd like to tear this thing apart. The 120 kit is only a few $100. So worst case scenario, maybe the 120 kit. But I want to make sure that the bottom end is fine before we start ordering any parts. And the dude who sold it to me, basically, I ended up calling him, and I didn't fully get the backstory when I bought it. Well, the bike actually sat outside. So I'm guessing that water either got in through the exhaust or the carburetor. That's the only thing I can figure. I checked the oil, and the oil doesn't have any signs of water in it. And unfortunately, the spark plug hole is super small on this. My bore scope won't go down in there, but I can just see the top of the piston, and it looks like there's some light corrosion going on there. I'm not sure. I figured let's just tear the thing apart, and we'll see. Thankfully, I'm only into it for $450. So if we do have to spend some money, it's not the end of the world. I love XR100s. This is one of the best bikes that Honda ever made. They kind of hold their value. They're always going to be worth, $800 and up, depending on the condition. And, if we make this thing a monster, it could be worth even more. Or I keep it and I ride around the yard. Although I already have an XR100, so I probably don't need. Well, we're getting into her now. She's a little bit more dirty underneath, huh? So I popped the airbox cover off. You can see a little bit of water in there, but that's not enough to stick the motor. So let's keep digging. I'm kind of thinking, let's pull the exhaust off because that has to come off if the head's coming off. Alright guys, I carefully removed the exhaust and I could see a little bit here. That is no good. That's why you can't be parking these things outside in the rain. On an XR100, the end of the muffler is higher than the exhaust port. So this thing filled up with water, and Went right in the exhaust. Crazy. Let's dig into this thing and take the head off. Carburetor comes off. These bikes are pretty simple. Just a single cylinder Honda, you know, the ones we love. So I didn't even think too much about it, but I pulled the boot off here and there was a little bit of moisture here. But when I went to pull the slide out, it was super stuck and it doesn't look great. So I just took the nuts off here and let's take a look. Ooh. Looks like we got water coming in from both sides. That is no good. No good. Oh boy. And with that wonderful discovery, I am getting real curious to see what the inside of the engine is going to look like now. Finally, some semi-good news. This looks pretty decent. Not full of water, so we're going to do some turning this motor. Well, I guess I can't. I can't turn the motor to top dead center. So that's a bummer. Didn't think about that. So yeah, I didn't think about not being able to get the thing to top dead center because it's locked. And I don't want to. I don't want to break anything. So maybe I can just be very careful. And let's see. Well, the exhaust actually seems like it's closed. The intake is definitely not closed. So, take some pressure off these guys. Oh yeah, I can see the cam lobe is almost all the way to the top. So the water must have got in through the intake and maybe a little bit the exhaust. It's nasty on both sides. And I don't know, who knows, maybe a ton of water didn't get in there. This all looks good up here. Let's loosen this stuff up. First, we're gonna get in a little speed mode here. Let's get serious. I wonder if this. See, we'll do that. Do that, and then if I just had 4 arms, you know. Let's see, get on here good. All right, let's try to go at it with a socket. There we go. Let's try this. There we go. That was a lot easier. So we got the nut. Let's just take the nut all the way off. Why not? Right? Well, there's some clearance issues getting the head off, so I'm going to pull the studs out. But I just had to pull it up and take a sneak peek, and oh boy, it's not looking good. So, hopefully the bottom end's okay. So to get the studs out, we're going to take 2 of the nuts, and we're going to run one down, and run this one down against it. And then we're going to tighten them up real good and hopefully pop right off. Alright, so I put a wire around the cam chain. I pulled the studs out, and I should be able to get this out. Hopefully. Go. There we go. Not so bad. Not looking good in there. It's not horrible, but she's a little rusty in there. Obviously, the moistures got down in there. Head's not looking the best. Let's get our friend the dead blow How? Let's just give this some friendly love from all angles here. I'm just hoping that the bottom end's fine. There we go. We are free. There we go. All right, we got movement there. The piston is still stuck. Dang. All right, let's take this out. I'm on the wrong side for this, but you know, make do. There we go. Let's tie that back up. Well, bare minimum, the cylinder would need to be super bored and honed. Let's just clean this off so we don't get any in the bottom end here. And then hopefully the bottom end's all right. It looks all right. I don't want to jinx it. Feels good. There's no up and down play on the rod. It's good. There's no rust. I don't see where moisture got down there. All right, so a little bit of good news, a little bit of bad news, I guess. The good news is the bottom end does seem to be fine. Obviously, I'm going to give it a couple oil changes just to be safe. But it's super smooth. The oil looks good, and it doesn't look like there's much water that got down in there. It was all kind of held into the piston, and the cylinder is pretty trashed. Also, the intake valve is pretty bad looking on that. So I need to decide on what I'm going to do here. There's options, right? Obviously, I could bore this cylinder, hone it, get a new piston, and then redo the head. And that would be kind of expensive for just having a stock 10 over or whatever setup. There's a company, BBR, that makes a 120 kit for this thing. So I need to look into that. But yeah, this is where we're at so far. While we're here, I need to get all this stuff cleaned up. I'm going to drop the oil out of it just to make sure there's nothing crazy in there. But this is where we're at, and I am going to order some parts, so we'll figure it out. But the bike's in good enough condition. What are you going to do, right? At this point, I got to rebuild it. And with a little YouTube magic, we are back, and in this box is the BBR 120 kit. So let's pop it open and check her out. Alrighty guys, so this is what we're working with. I ordered a new spark plug. They sent me candy, which was just awesome. I haven't had Pop Rock since forever. Grips, stickies. I ordered the jet that they recommend. I probably have one, but I just wanted to be safe, so I just went ahead and ordered one. So yeah, let's check out the big bore kit here. More stickies. Love that. Gaskets. We need that. And, all right, what we got here? Just a little checklist. Here we go. Valve springs. So this kit comes with a new cam. That's kind of one of the main reasons that I ordered this one. Now we're talking. Oop. Rings. Look at that beautiful piston cylinder setup. All right, let's get to work. So the kit doesn't come with a new head. We have to reuse our old one. So we're going to vapor blast this guy and make it look good again. It's pretty nasty. And with a little vapor blasting magic, nice clean head. So the valves are looking a little rough too. We're going to throw those things in there and blast them. And the top. So after lapping the valves and putting everything back together, put it over here, filled her up with WD-40, and went inside and had dinner. Looks like we are all good to go, no leaks. I love that. So moving along, now that the valves are installed and good, and I didn't show how I did it, and I know people get mad when I do that, but this isn't really how-to stuff exactly, but Basically, there's a specialty tool. You can get one from Motion Pro that will compress your valve springs. All right, folks, so the valves are in, tested, and they are good. I know I didn't show it. Motion Pro does make a special tool to release. Basically, it compresses these valve springs so you can get the keepers out. I will put a link to one of those. If you need to get one, go ahead and buy one. They're, buy one and have it the rest of your life type of deal. Now it's time to put the cam in. So we have the cam, and then also the kit came with new rockers, so we have to switch those out. And it's not insanely hard to do that on this. Basically, take a pick, this little oil passage here. You can push the rod out that way. And then on the other side, if you look, it is threaded. So take a nice little bolt that matches, a couple threads in, and look, she pulls right out. So we're going to swap that over. I was just looking, I'm going to vapor blast the intake and clean that up. So now that this is chilling, I busted out the old cylinder. My God, nasty. And we need to transfer the chain tensioner and guides into the new cylinder. Also, new cylinder, you're going to want to wash this with hot soapy water just to make sure that it is fully clean, and then hit it with some assembly lube. And just for comparison, stock piston, aftermarket with the big cutouts, pretty sweet. So when it comes to putting the piston in, they give you rings. This little wavy ring right here and the two thin rings. The two thin rings sandwich this. So one on top, one on bottom. And that is going to go in your bottom groove. And then you get kind of a silver and a black ring. The silver is going to go on top. Black's going to go in the middle. And both of them, you're going to want the letters facing up. Oh no. I forgot the gasket. You're supposed to put the piston in the head and put it on, but I forgot the gasket. So we're not going to do that quite right. And this, what I'm putting on now, is called gasket dressing. And being from the Midwest, I do love dressing, especially ranch. And we are in the home stretch now. So we got our cam chilling here. You can see the old BBR on there. Down here, see the T right there? And we're going to line that up right there with the top, or with this area right there. So line your top dead center up, and then the cam sprocket, there's your mark. That should be pointing straight up and down. Cam lobes pointing down. T lined up, the dot straight up, holes ready for the little bolts. And the trick that I use is I take a screwdriver, I put it in there, and then I slowly roll it up so there's enough room. Now that the engine is all done, before I can start it, it needs a good carburetor. And this one is dirty. So we need to vapor blast it, put a different jet in it. But yeah, look at that pilot. Ugh. Alrighty. This stuff cleaned up really nice. Super stoked. Time to put everything back together. Gotta love the vapor blaster though, huh? Alright guys, it's 1 in the morning, so I'm trying to be real quiet. But I just finished putting this thing back together. And it's not all the way together, but I gotta try it. I just put a splash of gas into the carburetor, so girl. All right. Proof of life. That's all I'm going to do for tonight. Like I said, it's 1:03 a.m., so I'm going to call it quits for tonight. But I'm going to sleep a lot better knowing that this thing runs. Whew. Hell yeah. All right, guys. So yeah, last night was a bit of a long night, but I just had to hear this thing run. I've done 2 heat cycles and oil changes on it already. Everyone has their own techniques as far as breaking in engines. There's a lot of right ways and maybe only a couple wrong ways. Personally, I do heat cycles and oil changes because oil is cheap and, you know, I'm paranoid. But so, I don't know, the engine sounds really good. I want to run it and ride it a little bit and then do another oil change. But I do need to order a few more parts for it, so it is loosely put back together. Nothing crazy here. Oh, first kick. She loves it. It's got a little bit of an intake leak because I didn't have a new gasket. Whoa! All right, we are in the home stretch now. I just got another delivery of parts. I was working on the Sportster, but we're going to take a little bit of a break to finish up this XR100, the old 120 monster. I got, what I've been waiting on is the intake gasket because it has an intake leak because I didn't have an intake gasket for it. And then a couple other little things. We're going to throw some new handlebars on it, new grips, air filter, miscellaneous stuff, and then take it out for a rip. The 120 kit definitely made a difference, and it revs. She revs real good now. All right, guys, so we're going to call this a wrap for the XR100. I might do other stuff to it, but for the purposes of time in this video, at this point, it is a running, riding bike that, you know, somebody could totally enjoy. And we did it on a budget. It was one of those things where, like I said in the beginning of the video, I made a bit of a mistake. I didn't fully look at it before I bought it, and then ended up finding the locked up engine and all that. But we fixed it on the cheap, and I made notes. I'll give you guys the full breakdown of what I spent. So the bike I paid $450 for. The BBR kit is like $250. I bought a couple little things, so we're gonna say $300 for all that. $20 for an air filter, $15 on oil. I haven't put it on yet, but I do have a new chain for it, and we're gonna call that $25. The bars, $30 on eBay. Same with the pad was on eBay as well. That was $11. The grips I got from BBR. Intake gasket, $5. The stock carburetor, I could not get this thing to run very good with a stock carburetor. I also didn't have a rebuild kit on hand, so for the purpose of time, I put a China carb on it because I had one on my other XR100 and I knew it was good carb. So I threw that on. It runs great. I'm gonna call that $40. I might put the stock carburetor back on it after I rebuild it. But yeah, we're just gonna call that $40. So all in total, with a running, riding, decent pit bike right here, we're into it for $896, so under $1,000. If you're a little bit mechanically inclined, you can have an XR100 to go ripping around on for under $1,000. How cool is that? These bikes are legendary. They're super reliable. There's tons of parts available for them. So BBR is a great company, but there's a handful of other awesome companies, and then there's endless China stuff. So I still, like I said, I still have a couple little things I might want to do to it. With the BBR kit, it does come with the cam, the heavier duty valve springs and rockers and all that. I went ahead and I put all that stuff in, and then after testing it and also running their recommended jetting, I realized that basically for that to be successful, you have to run an aftermarket exhaust, and you have to modify your airbox with the holes and the vents. For the sake of budget and everything else, I also like having a quiet pit bike. I opted to not put an exhaust on it. I want to keep it quiet. So I ended up playing with the jetting, and I found that it actually works best with the stock jets. So I went with the stock jet size. Like I said, I tried everything. I have hours of taking stuff in and putting it back out, trying to figure out what works the best. And it just seems like the stock jets work the best, so that's what we're running. And in the future, if I do decide to put a pipe on it or whatever, we'll go that route and open it back up. But as far as like a bolt-on situation with the 120 kit, if you're not running an exhaust airbox mod, you can put your stock cam in it and stock jets, and it's going to run pretty darn good. All right, so let me know what you guys think in the comments of our budget XR100 project. Pit bike under $1,000. Definitely the best bang for your buck as far as getting a pit bike. The XR100 is just a great bike. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a ton of fun playing with this XR100. I'm always looking for bikes like this because they're fun to work on, the parts are cheap, and they're always in demand. Bike prices go up and down, but kids' bikes normally kind of stay the same. They're pretty safe investments, and if you're a little bit mechanically inclined, you could definitely find a project like this and even make a little bit of money if you decided to sell it. So thanks for tuning in. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and we'll see you on the next one. Also, don't forget, we're building a chopper and we're giving it away, so stay tuned for that.